Awesome. So first thing we're going to do is I want to introduce you to my absolutely amazing, incredible child here, Ashna. Ashna was in her undergrad at Pomona, and then she went on to do her master's at Harvard. And I have to tell you, all her own ability to take her understanding of what she wants to do, what she wants to study to where she is. She's currently working at a startup, but also exploring starting her own here in the area, which obviously I'm super interested in, which is EdTech. And that's how we bond. But Ashna, actually, I got to know Ashna when she was deferred at Pomona. That's literally how our story began. And I really want her to share her story because you guys have to believe that children do get in with deferrals. And I wish my son was here because he got into two of the places where he was deferred as well. I wish the other children were here, but they're not. I have some of their sample letters with me, but we do have Ashna, and Ashna is going to be really honest and talk about everything that happened with her. So with that, let's do a quick round of what is deferral first. So Ninad, if you could move to the next page, please. What does deferral mean? Okay. First thing, your application has not been rejected. If it was rejected, you'd be told rejected. Okay. It's been deferred, which means they do like you, but they're not sure what the regular pool is going to look like. So they want you, but unless they see someone who kind of maybe is a little more of what they wanted. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is be positive with yourself. Stop beating yourself about it. There is still a chance of you getting into that college. You will now be a part of the regular pool of applicants. I'm not going to deny it. Obviously, that means the whole pool of applicants is now suddenly bigger. But that's a chance you took. You must have known that the early action, early decision at this school was a sure shot, fired out reach for you, but you still tried. And you must know that's what is important. Okay. And if a college is deferring, accepting, or rejecting, it's not you, it's your application. It is what I always say, what are you bringing to the college? Do they need it at that point of time? So if they don't need someone else to do psychology, for example, they're not going to be able to take you, so they defer you because they still like you. What's most important is the last point here is the shot at convincing the admissions team. Let's move on. What should you do? First thing, is this college really your top choice? Have you written to them saying that this is my top choice and why? So that's what your cover letter is, okay? Where you say that it's still my top choice and this is the reason why it's my top choice, which is basically showing your fit, but also being a kind of a why, why Babson, why Harvard, and so on. Make a document for your upload. Now, this is something I'm hoping your children have done. Go into the portal, find out, are you allowed to send an upload or do you have to send an email? And what's your deadline for the same? So make sure at least a week or 3 days before you've sent it out. Okay. Don't keep it for the last day and then call them and say, oh, I didn't send it, because sure short not getting it. Okay. So you check your portals for all the details. Remember, what you write should not be repeated in your application. And I think this is an area that I want Ashna to cover. I don't want to talk about it, Ashna, but you know what's important to look into your application again. Analyze what your application said. Ashna is going to handle both these aspects far better than I will. So we'll move on with the next. What to write? Convey your interest, make it personal. If you're going to say, oh, I'm really interested in going to Babson because it's the best entrepreneurship school, they know it. You don't have to tell them you're wasting your time, you're wasting theirs. But if you say, I heard the Babson alum student of dash dash here speak about the startup in EdTech, which is exactly what I wanted to do through my project dash dash. I knew Babson was my right fit. You've got their attention. You've made it personal. Okay. What do you talk about? Academics, extracurricular. I don't think that was meant to be awards. It was meant to be awards, but ignore me. I made this in like 15 minutes in this morning today because Ninad's not been giving me time for making this PPT. Update your LinkedIn. Now, this is super important. And Ashna, I know, beta, at your time, it wasn't, but more and more I am seeing it, and I would love to hear your point of view. But if you can share your LinkedIn link, profile with them, and you actually done things through your LinkedIn and built it to see your interest and followers, It's very interesting for them to get an aspect of who you would be as a professional. Okay, reiterate the fit. Any reason why a college wouldn't take you is for these two reasons. What do you bring to the college and what does a college bring to you? Okay, so do think of this question again a little more seriously. What you must know. Okay, so before I hand the mic on to Ashna, the virtual mic Ashna, but we will talk about what you must know. Deferral decisions are non-binding. So even if you applied for deferred and you get it, it doesn't mean you have to go, unlike the ED where, you might have been deferred. They generally announce it with the regular applicants, but in some cases it may be earlier. You cannot keep reaching out to the admissions team. I don't know how to spell this out for y'all. You can't start sending them good morning messages, you mean the most to me types. It just doesn't work, okay? One cover letter, one upload, back off. Unless something incredible has happened, reach out to me, discuss it with me before we think it's incredible as well and you want to send it, okay? Aspects to include, we've discussed new scores, new subjects, latest growth in your projects, awards, recognitions, and again, Ashna will talk about hers so you understand it. A little about the why in every element of you. Why Babson? Why Harvard? Why Pomona? Okay, make it specific to that college. I know I've said this twice, but I repeat it for your sake. Please don't ignore the specifics. Ninad, am I covered? I think I am covered. So before you show the example one, Ninad, let's move to example two. And Ashna, will you take over, please? Example two, please. Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Firstly, thank you so much for such a warm introduction, Ati. It's really great to be with everyone who's been deferred, and I'm happy to share my experience. So first thing, before I talk about my experience, I want all of you guys to know that Priyanka Auntie was the reason I got into Pomona. So whatever she said in these past 5 minutes, just take that to heart entirely and follow her direction. And I'm sure something good will come out of it. So as she expressed at the beginning of the webinar, I got deferred from Pomona. So I applied ED to Pomona and I was deferred. And there were a couple things that struck me when I first got that deferral letter, right? So my first thought was, oh, it's because of my grades. That's the reason I've been deferred, because I was taking math HL at the time. I don't know how many IB students are there, but I'm guessing all of them are IB students, right? Yeah. So I was taking math HL and my predicted was a 6 and I not performed well on a test. So I just assumed that, it's that one grade point that's holding me back. And that's what's causing this deferral. But as Auntie mentioned, deferral is so much more than just one grade point, one award, one extracurricular. It's your application as a whole and how you come across as a candidate. So in fact, deferral is an opportunity for you to present your case better and get that one little leg up against a regular decision candidate, if you come to think about it, because they have your application and you have this other opportunity through your cover letter, through this additional update to tell the admissions officers a little more about yourself that a regular decision person will not be able to tell the admissions team. So the way I kind of thought about, or the way Priyanka Auntie and I both thought about structuring this cover letter and the experiences and the display of all these experiences was in this particular format, which you can see in the example. So the first one was definitely reiterating grades, because that was a point of contention in my head. And it's important that admissions officers know that if you have dropped a specific grade or you haven't performed the way you should, they should know that you have that upward trajectory, you're working on it, and you're performing better in any kind of testing environment that they have access to. So that was kind of the first paragraph that said that, hey, this is how I've progressed in my academics, and this is what my grade profile looks like. And then, move on from that very quickly, because that's not the end all be all. So the next thing that we kind of spoke about, Priyanka Auntie and I was working on the social initiative with burn victims before I got deferred. Like, it was part of my nonprofit work, volunteer experience, whatever you might call it. And what's happening now increasingly in admissions offices, which I also know because I interned at the admissions office when I was at Pomona, is they tend to Google candidates that they're on the fence about, or just in general. They just Google you if you have some sort of social media presence, whether it's LinkedIn, some kind of published articles, some kind of news mentions, awards that are online, they pick up on that as one, like a way to validate your claims that you've made on your resume, and two, to also just get a feel of the candidate. So having something that's online, tangible, viewable, shareable will always be helpful, and just displaying your experiences will, will help make you more human in the admission officer's mind. So I was working on this burn victims opportunity, and I was teaching them tie-dye. And then what Priyanka auntie came in and said is that you have a great base, a great foundation for your volunteer work. Is there a way to display it and make sure that other people are able to view the work that you've done? So we ended up brainstorming this whole video montage and like I don't want to call it a capstone, but some form of like a project summary that detailed how I worked with burn victims and what the progress has been since I got deferred. So it became like from an MVP version, like a minimum viable product, it became more of like a polished professional product that people could see, visualize, and we ended up publishing a video on YouTube and just expressing in a more visual way the progress that my initiative had made. So that became like another part of the application that I know Pomona really cared about, because Pomona is a liberal arts college. They're very, impact-driven, liberal. So you want to play to that profile that, colleges have. And that was the other thing that I ended up putting in my cover letter. And then the third, or I guess the fourth paragraph, was something that was happening in school anyway, because we had CAS fets in the 12th grade and annual days and all of that, which I don't know how many schools do this, but my school, essentially for CAS, we have this one annual event that happens every year. And whichever nonprofit you're working with in the school setting, that's displayed, and you get to fundraise for that nonprofit. So I just leaned into what was happening at school, into my leadership capacities within that organization, within school. And I just made it sound, very polished, very involved, and put that out there. So that was kind of the sports, exercise, fitness day thing that I mentioned. So out here, I kind of leaned in on 3 different aspects of a personality that are important to an admissions officer. One was the grades and academics part, one was like the social volunteer part, and the third one was like a leadership role. So just giving them a very holistic, multifaceted explanation on who I am as a candidate and why I should be, or why I'd be a really great fit for Pomona. Because as Auntie mentioned, it's not about Babson is the best entrepreneurship school in the US. It's about how I can add value to the best entrepreneurship school in the US, right? Because they know they're the best and they want other people to add value to that. So if you're going to put out a cover letter that says that, oh, I want to go to Babson because I'll learn XYZ, they'll be like, okay, cool, but why shouldn't we take this other person who'll also learn XYZ? I want you to learn XYZ and also contribute ABC. It becomes more of a quid pro quo as opposed to just like a taking from the institution angle. And then the last paragraph, which again, Priyanka auntie was the main architect behind it, was how does this relate to something in my past? Because they have this persona of me, they know what I've been working on, and they love seeing continuity, which is something that a lot of admissions counselors will tell you, right? Like if you start an initiative early on and you show consistent progress with it over the years, they love seeing that because they know that you're committed to a cause, you're truly serious about it. It's not just something you're doing for college. So relating your current experiences back to what they've already read. And this helps with this continuity thing, and also for them to make that immediate connection with your application. Because if they can make this connection and have that in their mind, the next time they read your application with the regular decision pool, they'll remember 2 things: that, oh, we read it in early decision, we read it in the cover letter, and now we're reading it again. So it just sticks with them and they have more time to think and mull over it. So I think those were the broad areas that I got to focus on. And that was all thanks to Priyanka auntie. And yeah, I don't know how else I should be helpful or what else you'd like me to talk about.
So Ashna, that was really nice, the way you could actually just share everything and so honestly. But, children, I want you to focus on, look at the wording as well. So it was important that she spoke about, I obtained that 40 on 42. And she spoke about not saying, oh, I'm proud, I'm just pleased that I finally achieved that grade in math because it was bothering her. But she also spoke about a perfect score in sports exercise and health sciences, which was important to her application. Okay, because that is that area where she was constantly drawing into. It was a liberal arts college. She could do anything around it, but that was the area that, as much as I remember, her application was constantly pointing towards. Okay. And if you notice, there's a repeat of a similar mindset in that fitness day program. So she says that, and I love that one, is although my role as sports coordinator has reached its completion. So she mentioned again, I was the sports coordinator. She also tries to mention that it's done, but I still wanted to. And she co-founds this healthy eating initiative. And in some ways, it goes back to sports and goes back to health. So that is the underlying drive around. Then she speaks about in chemistry, I was invited by this company and researched, and that's being published now on their website, and you can view it on this link. So that was her first area of presence, that you want to read a little about a paper I've written, go and do it here. Okay. Then is this burn victim, which I agree with Ashna, and she reminded me now, it really was the single most important project, which wasn't given enough priority in her application because no one really knows what to give full priority to. And then she managed, luckily, to make that video. And I remember her doing it in like 3 days. She made that short video. She got lucky as well that Navbharat Times covered it. They sent it out to 5-6 media houses. And you girls, you kids are a little luckier. There's so much of digital coverage that you all can get, which she didn't have the luxury of. Okay. And hiking was also, tracking was a very important part of a common application essay. So to kind of not make that whole essay erode into nothingness, it was important for her to talk about the next hike that she's going to be doing. She might not have done it, but she said this month, as I do it. So that's also equally important to connect. So we have 2 more examples. Kids, unmute yourself, decide whether you all want to see that or do you all first want to ask Ashna questions? Ashna or me? Kids, don't keep this so formal. Please switch on your videos because you all are not going to get this opportunity again, beta. Yeah, you have the #1 of liberal arts and #1 of the college in the world speaker talking to you. You're not going to get this again. Okay, kids, anyone wants to say, should I show example 1 and 3? Can you all type it on the chat screen otherwise? Thank you, Ashna, for sharing your LinkedIn.
No worries.
Okay, I am just going to assume that they want to see the examples here. So let's see the example 1, Vinod. And Ashna, feel free to jump in and if you like something and you feel it might have worked or not worked, okay? So again, for all you kids, you'll really think academics is a very big drawback, and it could be. So he again speaks about, 40 on 42, this boy wanted to study economics. And so he speaks about economics being the top score and his subject proficiency in those subjects. Beyond academics, he moves straight to his project, like Ashna speaks about it. So this one was into solar powering, and it was a very, very important project for him. And his additional information essay was about how he failed in doing what he wanted to. So he took a lot of guts to write a failure essay, but he did write about it. So here he wanted to, when he analyzed, he said, okay, I want to, with AcceptU, they wanted to show a little more positive aspects. So he writes about the company, he puts the links where his video was covered. He also speaks about a corporate social responsibility project, but he also speaks about the marathon that he became a part of, the Humans of Bombay, where they're trying to work on this journey together. He also does this, establishes a program. So he had run this Each One Teach One program in his school, but that was just one school. So he actually managed to take it to IIT PACE. They didn't say yes. They said, we will look into it. It sounds really interesting. And he said, okay, if you begin, when do you begin? So they said Jan or whatever. So he managed to write that. Okay. Then he speaks about his whole article writing, because that's another thing that he wanted to apply was writing as a minor. So he speaks about his writing and his model UN. As a part of that, then he speaks about his table tennis. Again, if you remember, Ashna speaks about her hiking. So showing a little aspect of everything here. Okay. To these well activities, whatever. So he managed to collect money. Now this is displaying yourself on media. So he manages to show himself as the gold here. He also talks about he started creating this IGCSE tutorial. So he puts the link for that as well, which wasn't done when he applied for early decisions. Okay, so that's another example of a totally different style, but short. But if you notice that they're very similar, the thought process is very similar. Ashna, anything you feel you like, or you feel that might have added relevance?
Yeah, I think these are super great examples, especially even that idea of talking about some things that don't work, because universities are very interested in just learning how you think and process things that happen in the world, and it's not always going to be success. So even being upfront and honest, saying that I tried something, it didn't go my way, and here's what I'm doing to iterate on it, improve on it, or be better, I think that'll also go a long way. So don't worry if things don't pan out the way you wanted to. Don't lie about it. Be honest and just upfront about what your next steps are. And I think anyone who's reading your essay will appreciate that, because you learn more from failures anyway.
Absolutely, so well said. We're moving to example 3, children. I'm hoping that so I realized when you all filled up the form, there were at least 3 from Babson. Babson tends to differ because they're early actions anyway. So they tend to differ, but they do take children in the regular round. So this one completely changed it and wrote it in a very different way. Okay. So he speaks about, and look how he has gone specific. So he talks about Tory Burch's commencement, he or she, I don't remember, I'm sorry. I think she talks about Tory Burch's commitment and says that, this is something I also agree with. Very specifically pulled out. She must have gone through details to find this video and watched it. Okay, core interest is entrepreneur, specialization in real estate. She or he talks about why it is important and what they will bring to Babson, but what Babson will bring back to them. And then eventually see again, it's very, very specifically to Babson as a social innovation, and speaks about the residents trying to live in extremely inadequate, and I hope to be able to get that back into his or her own project. So you see the whole fit that Ashna was talking about, the quid pro quo system, that is actually being put in here. So that's another example of a deferral letter. And, we have many of these letters, but the point is you do you speak you. So the whole purpose of showing these examples is that you get an idea of what children write. So of course, if AcceptU children, just move on to the last. Yeah, AcceptU children, you already know, you have your counselor, you have me, more than available for you all. But any other children who are not working here with us, do please reach out to us. We're very happy to help you in any way that we can. Okay, I know it's very underwhelming, very, very upsetting to not get in and be deferred because you don't belong to any pool. But I will say one thing, and I hope Ashna agrees with this, is that colleges know which children will best fit. So wherever you go, the truth is that's the place you'll be the happiest at. Okay, and believe the college on this. Ashna, do you agree?
100% agreed.
Right. So with that, we are done. I'm hoping that Ashna and I are getting some questions, children, because you have to write your deferral letter. So you can even ask us questions about, oh, my Common App essay was about this. This is my project. What do you think I could do? We'll help you ideate ideas as well. Ideate on them. So yeah. Daksh, I just have to start calling out your names. Daksh, where have you been deferred?
I've been deferred at Babson. So
Got
I
it.
just had a basic question. How long, like ideally, how long should the deferral letter be? Because I'm assuming it shouldn't be too long because it would get like monotonous because you start repeating what you've already said in your application.
Oh my gosh, if it reaches a stage where you're repeating, it's long already. I'd say 1 page max. And it could have links. Like, for example, I remember one of the children wanted the abstract of the extended essay paper to be read. So you can give the link of that paper, but don't write the whole paper there. You can say one line about how it is, it's been really looked into by college, and the professor has said that it's turned out to be an excellent paper. And it would be great if you would like to read my paper. This is a link. That's fine.
Got it. Thank you.
I mean, I'd also say don't worry about the length, focus on the content.
Yeah.
Write to your heart's content, and Priyanka auntie is like an amazing editor. So just bring it to her and she'll cull and cut through all the nonsense. So write whatever you think is most important, focus on that, and then we can streamline it later.
And Daksh, you and Brad can take over, decide, and if you still want me to see it, I will see it. There's no problem.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, since you guys are making me call names, I'm just gonna have to call names. I hate this. Imad, you've been freaking out about the deferral to such an extent that you refuse to speak with me, beta. So why don't you? I mean, this is your opportunity to ask Harvard anything to Ashna. Imad?
In terms of the why you fit in, because in my supplementals, I kind of touched on that. So in the deferral, how would you make it like different? How would you add to that?
I'm sorry, could you say that again? I didn't quite understand the question.
So basically in my supplementals, the fit part was something that I touched on, like why I'd want to go there and what I would get from it. So in my deferral letter, how would I like tweak that so that's a bit different? Or
a couple of ways. One is obviously add on to what you'd add to Harvard, right? Like you were doing some things until the application was supposed to be submitted, and you've been working on more stuff now. So add that. So add anything new, any updates. So that would be something that would be something that they've not read before. What are some other ways that you can add to the supplementals? If there, I mean, that was covered in the slides that Priyanka auntie wrote. Like, are there any awards, some kind of recognition, any new projects that you've taken, or just reiterating how you can add value to the Harvard community, say that you spoke to alumni or you reached out to certain people, something like that. So a couple of different ways you can go about it.
And for your case, Imad, I would actually want you to take a little time, if possible, for Ashna to speak with her, because then you can actually speak about that. That speaking with an alumni, what did you realize about Harvard, which you didn't know? Because you've not been there. So you might have felt this is the setting, this is the ethicality, or this is the vibe. But when you actually heard and understood how she's passionate about edtech and how you're passionate about environment, what are the ways that you could actually start your project? One of the things, Imad, is, and Ashna, I think this is where we feel that he's been deferred, is his financial aid.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if there is anything that should be covered on that, and I'd love it if you could read his Common App essay. It's very, very unusual, very different, but there's no aspect that was covered of financial aid as such. So if there is a need, and if he needs to speak a little about the country which he belongs to, I don't want to name anything, but where the struggle is, the economic development, the aspects, and thus the need for it. If you feel it, then I kind of feel there's a need, but I want you to take that decision, and you and I can decide as well.
Happy to. And I feel like if you are the country, again, I don't know, but it might be a leverage point, right? Because if it's a backward country, you can say that I will be the 10th or the 11th person to ever get into a Harvard undergrad in the past XYZ years.
He would probably be the first for his school also. You're right, Ashna. Those are the things that I didn't even think of it, but I do feel that there's a little element of quantifying where he belongs to, has not come out. So I'd love to see if you could look into it.
Like even cornering in on this, I don't want to call it like minority, but in a way, like universities love strong minority applications no matter what, because you become a face case, you can be used as a diversity metric. It's a PR thing, social thing. So kind of honing into that identity of being different, unique, and a minority in some way, which you are, and like such a strong candidate from what Auntie's saying, would also be a good way to go, because there won't be many competitors there, right? Like you can truly differentiate by leveraging your identity in that way.
Imad, does it
Right.
make sense, beta? So
Yeah.
Ninad will send you Ashna's email address and or Ashna WhatsApp, whatever you prefer. And please reach out and fix the time with her.
All right. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Imad. Sanvi?
Hi, Priyanka aunty.
Hi, beta.
So I got deferred from Babson as well, and I had a question about how you said continuity is really important. And if I had to like touch upon my organization that I've already mentioned in my supplemental previously, do I talk about like just the small things that I've done in the past few months that I haven't touched upon? Or like, is there anything else I could add to it other than that?
There's definitely a need to add a little more. Ashna, would you be okay to look at her project once and see if there's any element that you feel could be a quick add?
Sure. Do you want to give me a quick summary? Maybe we can brainstorm right now.
Right. I also think so. Sandy, why don't you talk about it? Because then there's almost, all of us can add value.
Okay, so my organization is called Arenda, and it's basically it's a way to help women in India who are like restrained like by social constraints, not able to like work outside their home. So we give them an opportunity to financially like self-earn and be financially independent and be like providers for their family by giving them resources and marketing their products and basically doing the extra work for them to use their passion to sell what they want to do. So I have so you also mentioned that I can like put in a few links. I have that there's one magazine that also published about this, and I have a website, but other than that I don't have any. So should I like also put in those links in the deferral letter? Or?
So have you already given admissions officers a link to the website and the other material you just described?
No.
So then definitely add that 100%. Have you written about it in any way in your application?
Yeah, I've written it in one of my supplementals already.
So this may be, so I'm typing something in the chat right now. So
Okay.
this is what I gleaned from what you just said.
Yeah.
I forget the typo and empowers and all that, but you need to make it sound a little more than we're helping rural women. It's a little bit more about how you're also learning through the progress and how they've helped you learn something about the world.
Okay.
So lean into that social entrepreneurship lens a little more. I know Babson does value that. That would be one aspect.
I'm wondering, Ashna, if I can just jump in here. If there's some other nonprofit or something else that she could connect with, where it kind of becomes either a CAS project or a CSR project where they are actually also helping. For example, I'm a part of a nonprofit where we have something called #NotAlone, which we started for COVID women survivors. Basically, as they lost their husbands or they lost their spouses and they've never worked. So we actually got them to do computer classes and math classes and just basically set them up to be able to do something, right? So if Sandy, there was something you could show in like a parallel, like, while I was working with rural, I also came across a women's hostel in my city, or I came across this women's all girls school or an all-girls orphanage, and I wanted them to learn that they have to skill themselves. And we organized a skilling team, and we did this for them. And we are going to be holding the event where our products could be displayed on our website or a marketplace. Then that makes sense. But of course, you'll have to go back to the drawing board, ask your parents, ask your connects if there is a contact like that you can pull up.
Can I just add something? Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, Peter.
So we've actually, like, in the past few months, I haven't mentioned this in my supplemental. We
Okay.
connected with this other organization called She Help, and we helped women in old age homes. So should I mention that?
Oh my God, that's exactly what I'm talking about, right, Ashna?
Yeah.
And she can
wow.
actually go and skill them. You can actually have anyone, go and skill them to be able to make something which can be sold. So
Yep.
for example, I don't know, our festivals like Raksha Bandhan is going to come. How about they learn how to make little Rakhis, and your marketplace is actually going to sell it. So you can show that, I'm prepping them up for August.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to learn how to make the pom-poms and strands, and it is extra money.
Mhm. I mean, also just from a more top-down lens, you can think about expanding or showing differentiation in 3 ways, right? One is the brand, the other is the data, and the third is partnerships. So data is simple. It's like, how many women did you impact when you submitted your application versus how many are you impacting right now? So just that progression in numbers, very quick, simple metric. And you can get a bunch of different data points, right? It's just not just number, maybe it's how much income is generated per user. And obviously you can work with Auntie to kind of brainstorm more metrics that look very appealing. So that's the data part. Partnerships is what Auntie was describing, like go to other nonprofits, other labels, other sister father organizations who can help you expand reach and scale and talk about them. And the third would be the brand, right? So maybe release some sort of content, like maybe make some reels, for example, on these products, set up an Instagram shopping page, or
Good idea.
something that'll basically make your brand stronger or have a stronger online presence, which admissions officers, if they happen to Google you, can see very easily. So those would be the 3 angles through which I target.
Oh my God, I loved it. I hope you've written it, Sanvi, because you
Yeah.
should use that in your upload. Brand, data, and what did you say? Product, right, Ashna?
Partnerships.
Partnerships. And then you can actually say that, I focused on these 3 things and realized that I needed to improve this. So other things that I've done, other things I'm planning to do.
Yeah.
That's great. So yeah, I think we're good. We're all set, Ashna. These are the children who had questions. The other one got scared, I think, that I'm calling out names and ran away. But that's fine. Let's hope they reach out anyway. We're going to definitely connect you to Imad, but beyond that, I think that was fantastic, Ashna. Thank you so much, because when it comes from you, the whole aspect of how you managed to show it as a student and the right method of putting it down will never happen from us. So I really appreciate the time you've taken out for me. Thank you.
Anytime. Auntie wouldn't be in college without you. So this is the least I could do.
Not true. You're now a byproduct of Harvard. So thank you for this.
Also a byproduct of your counseling. So that comes first.
I appreciate that. Nina, thank you for organizing this, and good evening, children. Have a lovely day. Make sure you use the weekend to think about this further and write it down. Bye-bye. Good night. Thank you again, Ashna.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Ashna.
Thank you, Auntie. Ashna.
Thank you, Bacha. Bye.